calling out from Scatland. I'm calling out from Scatman's World. It's VGC, the video game podcast with me, Chris Scullion, Andy Robinson, and Pete Donaldson. This week, dogs and cats are shacking up again as another big Xbox series is confirmed for PS5. But first, how's it going, folks? Pete, you're back. How are you?
I'm back. What's 101st episode?
Episode 101.
Starting as we started the first one, I think. Was I on the first one? I can't blooming remember. I remember I was
Possibly,
in resident.
yeah.
Probably.
I was in residence, I think. Yeah.
In fact, you were definitely on the first one.
Yeah, you would have.
Like, we need to make the most of Football Rambles, Pete Donaldson.
Soon
to be on tour across the country. Tickets on sale now.
I was just about to mention that.
We're off up to Glasgow at Oranmore, I think it is. Beautiful venue.
Lovely venue.
We managed to sort of do that. When we played the Palladium, big old venue, about the limits of what a podcast can do in a venue. I think we sort of scaled it down for the national tour. So I'm really looking forward to going to like slightly smaller venues because it's just better. It sounds better. Yeah. But we had a protracted 2-week argument with the Palladium because I went through a table, TLC style, and in the Palladium show, and they wanted to charge us something like 500 quid for like a wallpaper table, and I'm like, that's not worth 500 quid. I'll go DFS and get you one. It's just absolute jokers.
I almost had my wedding at the Oranmore, but they
Are we going to say the Palladium?
No, the Palladium. I almost went through a table at my wedding. No, they nickel and dimed me on the extras. It was like, oh, we've got a door to a balcony, but we're going to keep that locked, but for an extra 300 quid you can unlock it so people can go to the balcony. And I'm like,
oh, Mike, DLC at your wedding.
Exactly. Microtransactions.
You want some armour for your horse.
Exactly. Actual macro transactions at a wedding. I was absolutely raging. But yeah, Andy, how's things? You fully recovered from your trip last week?
All right. Yeah, just busy. Yeah,
it's been a week, hasn't it?
I've still got loads. I feel like I got loads of stuff to write that I haven't written. I spoke to the Savage Planet guys, the X Stadia guys. That's a really underrated game, by the way. If you like kind of like platformy first person adventure games. Mm-hmm. Although they've made the sequel third person, which I told them off for, but I guess it makes sense. So I've got to write about that. They've got an amazing stunt planned. I'll say amazing. I may have exaggerated somewhat there. They got amazing stunt planned soon, which will definitely be on game sites.
Interesting.
And yeah, I need to. You know what? I've got this habit of doing amazing interviews and then having them pop up on my phone for a full calendar year before I do them if they're not time sensitive. So I still because I went drinking with the Res development team, didn't I? Remember the game Res. And they literally brought the design doc for the sequel with them. And I sat there and read through it, and they're like, "Yeah, take photos. Ask what you want." And then he took me back to his house because the Dreamcast, his debug Dreamcast wouldn't work. He's like, "Well, I only live in Ikebukuro. Do you want to come?" Like, yeah. And he took putting me in his Porsche and drove me to his house, and then we played prototypes of my favorite game. Wow. So it was a bit of a fever dream, really. So I do need to. Right,
it needs to go up, but we know, from a business sense, the problem with that is you'll take ages on that and really properly pour over it and make it an exceptionally outstanding piece, and then
more people read the PSN update.
Yeah, exactly. So it's massively frustrating. But
DLSS 4
is the realities of our job, right?
Yeah,
that is just it, and that is that's why it's nice to be making headways on Patreon, because it means we can do stuff like that. Maybe I should just stick it on Patreon.
Oh no! Don't. Well,
no.
That gift for the woman go.
Put every third word outside
Exactly.
Patreon, and if you want all of the words.
Speaking of which, I really should plug the Patreon since our run of show has Patreon plug writing in big bold red letters. Patreon.com/Video Games Chronicle for extra kind of silliness. I just played Jordan at WWE 2K24, in which I played as myself and fought against Muhammad Ali, God rest him. No spoilers. But yeah, so check out our Patreon for slightly sillier stuff than you would get on.
Did you just lie on the floor and kick him in the leg like when he did that shoot match?
Exactly. No, there was no Japanese wrestlers just like kicking the hell out of him this time. It was very above board. Other than the fact that he's dead. Does anyone have any energy drinks, or are we energy drinkless?
I have the Boomer energy drink of an Americano.
Oh,
That's
I've got a
quite
Bigger
boomerous.
Juice fruit punch. That's got no caffeine in it, but the sugar. I am Jamaican, it says, and I am calorific.
I have a Monster that I've never tried before, and I'm almost certainly going to hate it. I was given it as a Christmas present from my wife, who thought I might like to try different Monsters, but she obviously didn't get the brief that I hate watermelon and I hate sugar-free drinks. So that's why she got me 0 sugar watermelon flavoured.
It's got a lovely design. It looks
the
like
design is beautiful.
It looks like 3 syringes that have been found in a body.
The design is beautiful. I hate the blurb. I don't like Monster blurbs. Apparently, for Monster Energy Ultra Watermelon, it says, under the firework lit night sky, you've got your crush by your side. With good music and better friends, it's the best summer ever. Ultra Watermelon is summertime in a can, so you can enjoy it anytime. All I've been looking for my whole life is summertime in a can, and it sounds like we finally got it. So I'll just confirm. It smells like watermelon. And unfortunately, it tastes like watermelon.
Right. So you're not a big... What don't you like about watermelon? So what don't you like about this drink?
There's just something about the taste of watermelon for some reason I just don't get along with. It might be the quantity of water that's in it, and I've already been had jibes at me in the past about the fact that I don't drink water. I can't drink water.
Have you got rabies?
When
you get rabies, you get scared of water.
We have this conversation at least 3 times a year.
It's a condition.
Like
it's an undiagnosed condition.
I completely agree. As a father of a young child, though, I was astonished how much water people have to insist children have to drink all the time. Because I remember when I was in school, I didn't drink any water for months. Never went to the tap.
It's irrational, right? Because you are drinking water every day.
I know. So there's something.
So you just don't like to know that you're drinking water.
That's the thing. I maintain it's a condition, but it might be a mental condition.
Well, it's because you're definitely drinking water.
And it's not a case of me just drinking water and going, "Oh, I don't like that." It's my body is physically rejecting it. If it's I'll drink water, it comes back up again. I don't know why.
Right,
I don't know. I literally can't drink it.
Like a weird pest dispenser.
Yeah, I mean, it would make life infinitely easier because I'd just be drinking at the tap all the time, saving so much money. But
have you tried gobbing down some ice? Maybe just swallowing ice like Pac-Man.
Well, one day. My brain was thinking of a segue for the first story, but I can't get one, so I'll just say, speaking of gobbing down, Forza Horizon 5 is coming to the PS5 this spring. Another big Xbox former exclusive is the console exclusive is now coming to PlayStation. Forza Horizon 5 will be released on PS5 this spring. It's been confirmed that it's been handled by Panic Button, who usually do those kind of impossible Switch ports, so like Doom and Wolfenstein.
Right.
They're now doing this, but they occasionally dabble with kind of PS Pro kind of graphical upgrades and stuff for games, so it makes sense that they'd be handling this. According to the Forza site, it's going to have all the previous car packs, and the expansions are going to be available for purchase. Obviously, they won't be included because that'd be crazy, but you'll be able to buy all the DLC. It's another big, especially because Phil Spencer was saying earlier this week that in an interview that Starfield wasn't out of bounds for a big port. It looks like basically nothing's off limits now if Forza's going over.
I think they've been really smart to get ahead of this because they are now slowly releasing all of their games on PlayStation, and they will do the same on Switch too.
Yeah.
They're, I think, really behind the scenes because it's something that they can easily hide. They are kind of like they're not stocking the console in certain territories. I wouldn't be surprised if, by the end of the year, it's very difficult. I mean, you could get an Xbox on Amazon. I mean, I'm sure it's like I read somewhere that it's out of stock for months on in a lot of places.
Yeah.
I mean, you imagine if they hadn't have put a lot of PR into this all last year, Phil Spencer doing the rounds and doing their podcast with Sarah Bonds and talking about, this is the future of Xbox and it doesn't mean this, and they kind of pitter patter, weren't they? It's just 4 games. It's just 4 games. We all knew that was nonsense.
Yeah,
it's not. You don't just do 4 games
and then leave
for a laugh, because unless those 4 games set on fire, which they weren't going to, you're going to do another 4 games. This is these games that are coming out this year. It's not a trivial amount of development work. They've not just gone, press the PlayStation button on Unity and export. It's a lot of planning required. So you imagine if they hadn't have done all of that, and now they've basically they're not the console war is over, right?
Yeah,
it's hard to sort of undersell. This one's like the crown jewel because it's probably the most sort of consistently decent title.
100%,
in Xbox's artillery, and it's probably one of the only sort of driving games I've ever tried to play.
It's a brilliant game. Brilliant game.
I met a boy on a housing estate to buy his Logitech wheel off him not that long ago, and I'm
so glad you said Logitech wheel.
ended up didn't work.
It came with some free drugs.
He absolutely Facebook marketplaced me. I'm absolutely fuming. So still not played that with a wheel.
It is weird because it is a massive gap. One of the few gaps that the PlayStation library has, because I've seen a lot of people since this was announced saying there's nothing like this on PlayStation. It's like it'd be one thing if it was Starfield. There's a load of kind of third person adventure-y type games out there.
Yeah.
Even if it was Halo, like you can't move.
What an amazing game that'll be on Switch 2, though.
I know that's the thing. Forza Horizon on Switch 2 would be. And that's doable because they brought it out. It was on Xbox.
It's a very like handheld friendly game as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't mean in technology wise. I just mean like I could see myself playing it on handheld. Like just pick up and play it for 10 minutes and put it down.
100%. It's my daughter's favorite game as well. It's like
my kids love that. Yeah.
Yeah. You just dump them in the middle of the desert bit.
Yeah. This is the thing is that I can't remember who I had this conversation with. I think it was might have even been you. I'm sure you said your daughter was struggling with one of the Mario games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I said that I think mine are like a little bit old. Mine are a little bit older than yours, aren't they?
Yeah, mine's just 6.
Right. So the games my kids always get on with is the open world games because there's no peril, right?
Yeah.
There's no urgency. You can go your own pace. There's always like fun of just moving around and exploring. Whereas if it's like a side-scrolling game, it's all of that goes away. Like there's one path. Like you're going to encounter some threat that you have to deal with, and if you don't deal with it, it's game over.
Yeah. The only exception to that, which is brilliant, is Mario Wonder, because that's the first game she beat was Mario Wonder, because if you play as Yoshi, he doesn't take damage, and you can get those badges, like the badge where if you fall down a pit, you can get resurrected once and stuff like that.
See, that surprises me. That surprises me. That does.
It's weird, but like for some reason,
you still like if you fall down a hole, you're game over.
Yeah.
So it still requires a lot. You can't blag your way through that game.
Yeah,
it's still like even if with the I think the accessibility options in that game could actually be better.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, because it's just fundamental. It's like you've just said, if you fall, you can fall in a hole once. Oh, good. But there's lots of holes in platformer games.
I would need to go. I need to go through it more.
Is that where Nintendo draws the line?
But I would need to.
Not letting you fall in twice.
But I would need to look through Wonder. I would need to look through Wonder with a bit more kind of a fine tooth comb, because I get the feeling there aren't as many.
That sounds like a special, by the way. That sounds like a special feature.
Was that going through Mario Wonder?
What game features would trump revoke?
Yeah,
Like accessibility options, get them out.
Go on.
Oh, any character, Princess Peach would be out. She wouldn't be allowed in.
HDR sliders, get out.
Get out of it.
DEI and character creators, get it out.
Patches.
You talk about the PlayStation 5 getting a decent racer, and it potentially ending up on
a decent
Twitch.
Horizon game.
Oh, there we go.
Ridge Racer. Ridge Racer's out on the Switch, which is it's the first time they've been able to play it for something like 20 years.
I didn't play Ridge Racer 64.
It's good.
Right?
It's good.
Is that good though?
Here's the problem.
But all of the things I love, a lot of things I love about Ridge Racer, I just can imagine being shit on N64.
But here's my
soundtrack's going to be shit.
It's like
there's going to be no
everyone
FMV.
Gets excited about Ridge Racer until they play Ridge Racer again, because they forget, because all the cars drive like they've got movable wheels on the back. It's like a shopping trolley. It's mad.
That's exactly what we want. Well, I want like Japanese speed techno, and I want the car to be sideways at all times.
Yeah.
So here's why some sunsets and a beach.
Here's why Ridge Racer 64 isn't remembered so much, and it should be. I love it. It's a great game. It came out a year after Ridge Racer Type 4 on the PlayStation.
Right.
So by that point, Namco had moved on, and Type 4 was the first kind of new, like home-only Ridge Racer that had that proper progression and like 300 cars on loads of tracks. And then a year later, they came out with Ridge Racer 64, which was basically another arcade-style one. There's like 10 tracks, like like a bunch of lockable cars. So it felt like a step back.
Right.
So in terms of the arcade Ridge Racer kind of era, it's a brilliant game. But everyone compared it to Type 4, which was more kind of advanced, so it kind of got ignored.
Right.
But I love it. I still love it. I'm delighted to see that get added today.
I do not like to hear of a 30th anniversary for a video game that required 3D acceleration in any way. It's just like, no, don't like that. Do not like that.
My favorite one's the PSP one.
Oh, that was excellent.
Yes,
There's two on the PSP, wasn't
that
there?
was lovely.
Is it called Ridge Racers? Is it?
Ridge Racers, yeah, and then there was a sequel,
really
which was kind of pretty much the same thing.
That's amazing.
Does the man shout Ridge Race plural then? Is he kind of Ridge Racers?
I'll need double check.
AI'd him at the end.
That is a good pub quiz question.
What does a man shout at the start of Ridge Racers on the PSP? And then it came out in the Vita, and that ruined it. The Vita version of Ridge Racer just killed Ridge Racer. Basically,
That's when it went woke.
That's when it went woke. They microtransactioned the absolute shit out of it, and that was the end of Ridge Racer. Sadly, moving on. Now that I'm depressed. BioWare.
You bought so many ridges in that game.
Oh mate,
I've got 50 ridges.
You won't believe how many ridges I've raced over in my time. Like, that's why my back's.
Ridges did you collect?
That's why my back's in pieces. BioWare confirms it is downsizing as it, quote, doesn't require support from the full studio for Mass Effect. EA is downsizing BioWare as the studio is switching its full attention to Mass Effect 5. In a blog post, BioWare's general manager Gary Mackay the New, as we call him in Scotland, confirmed that the studio is restructuring following the release of Dragon Age: The Veilguard. So he said the game doesn't require full support from the full studio, so they're moving a bunch of staff to other teams in EA, and some of them are sadly also being laid off. This is one that could be taken in multiple ways. I know you've worked in development, Andy, but albeit maybe not for a team as large as BioWare. Is this him basically saying that we don't need so many people working on Mass Effect at such an early stage of development and we'll bring more people on later? Or is this him saying we need to downscale long term and stop throwing people at these games for budgetary reasons?
Well, I mean, the only way I can look at it, I mean, I can't say I've not, I mean, I didn't cover this story, so I've not looked into it in great detail. I'm sure there's like people on social media and stuff, like ex-employees, sharing a bit of light onto what's actually happened. But so my immediate reaction is, well, they've gone from 2 teams to 1. I mean, they've been working on Dragon Age for ages. Mass Effect's been in development for a good couple of years.
Yeah.
So it just seems to me that they're just saying, well, we're one team again.
Yeah, so rather than moving some of the Dragon Age team over to Mass Effect, they've decided we don't need to do that.
That's what it seems to. Again, without looking into it, so this might not be right, but I mean, so that obviously there'll be duplicate roles, and they won't need them or don't want them.
It also
That's
seems
the only thing I can imagine.
It also appears at the end of Mackay's statement, it looks like it may be McKay. I know Americans sometimes say McKay instead of Mackay, which is what it
is wrong
objectively is.
Malky
but
McKay, it's not right.
No, it doesn't sound like. But you've got that Adam McKay, like the film director. He says McKay,
yes.
which I refuse to accept. Either way, this McKay/Mackay ends by saying, "Today's news will see BioWare become a more agile-focused studio that produces unforgettable RPGs," which sounds to me like this is the plan going forward, that they'll do one game at a time. If that's true, that they've gone from a 2-team structure to a single team structure, that sounds like that might be what they do from now on.
Yeah, that'd be my guess.
Okay, well, sad days. I mean, is this Mass Effect going to be good? I know it's very early days, but what's your gut instinct, Andy? Is this next Mass Effect going to kind of go back to the glory days of the series, or?
I know Dragon Age was very. The word on the street was that Dragon Age was very make or break for them. And if it went badly, then who knows in this climate, right? I mean, They've come off of Anthem. They've kind of like, the answer to that is like, right, we're going to refocus on our 2 biggest IPs, on what we're known for, what we're good at. So I can't imagine it would go well for them if it's kind of okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of difficult to gauge how they think Dragon Age went. The reviews from my perception were mixed, but a lot of the noise was like, "Oh, what great scores." Because I know a lot of outlets really loved it, but we were less so much.
Yeah, less keen.
And I mean, obviously, it was overwhelmingly because of FIFA. They put out that warning last week about the results.
Yeah.
Because I think the EA, the microtransactions on FIFA or FIFA FC these days are down significantly for some reason.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably could tell me more about that as a player. Like why that might be, but they're down significantly.
One of the good reasons for it is I was on Blue Sky and I was asking people for questions for later on, and one of the questions actually sums it up pretty well. Joe on Blue Sky asked me, "What are you sick of seeing on EAFC this year?" Personally, I'd banned the '94 Zidane. It was something that we touched on last week. Is that basically EA are really generous just now with what they're doing with Ultimate Team, to the extent that people are thinking, I don't need to spend so much on microtransactions. Basically, at the stage FIFA Ultimate Team is at, or EAFC Ultimate Team is at this year, most players are now hitting like 90 rated players. Like the average rating goes up over the years so that people's teams constantly get better. We're at the point now where people mostly have 90s and 91s. A couple of weeks ago, they just gave everyone a 90 rated Zidane, and then said, and you can evolve him up really easily to a 94 rated Zidane. So now everyone has this one guy in their team because he's the only 94 they've got. And now everyone's got a 94 player. They're like, well, I don't need to buy loads of millions of packs of players but my centre of midfield is like an absolute shit hot player, and everyone can kind of can play off him.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So like they've kind of shot themselves in the foot with oddly with their generosity. Everyone's going, well,
is this just kind of like a progressing thing though, an evolving thing? Because obviously they'll have a dial that sort of goes, if we're nicer to them, more people join back into the game because they're hearing that you get your evolving 94 Zidane, and then they turn it down once they're in, and then they spend more money on microtransactions.
It does feel like 2K is really good, i.e. bad at this kind of giving and then taking. Like it's like, do you remember the theme park? In theme park, when you negotiate with your staff, there's a wee thing where the two hands appear at the bottom, and you've got to kind of move your hands.
Did they do that in Sensible Soccer as well, or am I being silly?
They did it in something else. There was another game where the two hands came together, and it was to kind of move like that to try and make a deal. It's basically that. It's like they'll do something generous for a while, and people will go, "Oh, good, that's really cool," and then over the year they'll kind of tweak the dial a wee bit until people start saying this is bullshit. And then when the next year's game come out, they go, "We heard you saying this is bullshit, so now we've fixed this," and then they kind of tweak it again every year. So it's it's an odd relationship. But
tilting it back to BioWare, obviously in that same release, they said that the sales of sales, they said players. So it's not even sales. It said, I'm sure it's like it has reached 1.5 million players. It's on EA Access, right?
Yeah.
So it'll be less than 1.5 mil sales, presumably. And they said that was 50% less than what they expected. So it's kind of difficult to gauge how they might be feeling about that game right now.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's a weird one.
You can't feel these days. You can't feel confident for the future of any studio. Because making stuff that isn't an established, live service hit inside a big publisher like EA.
It's a weird one. I'm just curious to see because you would imagine Mass Effect will sell more purely on the name alone. Mass Effect has a bigger fan base than Dragon Age does. You still see people walking around with N7 jumpers and t-shirts and shit like that on. So you can imagine it'll sell X amount.
It's like, when did the last proper one come out though?
Well, there was that Andromeda, which people
it was the
really...
jelly. Was the ones that had everyone had jelly legs when they ran downstairs?
Like is that all of them?
I know. The Mass Effect 2 was like 15 years ago.
3 had the
presumably
whole
3 was like 13 years ago.
Yeah. It's I don't know. We'll see what happens.
So you get to the point, right? Like even like in what we do. You go, this is a bit like bit like Assassin's Creed 2, and you realise that game's like, none of a big chunk of your audience don't know what that is.
Yeah. And also when we talk about Mass Effect being a massive sort of franchise, in the grand scheme of things, next to your Pokemons and stuff, it's absolutely minute, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. But the problem is that when did they mention that? They announced there was a new Mass Effect coming, 2020, December 2020. So more than 4 years ago, they announced that this new game was coming. And it's like, I mean, how long... Did they announce these games too early? Because there was hype then.
Well, when they announce this stuff, it's to hire people.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
If they announce stuff like a million years before, they come out, it's because they're hiring and staffing up.
Right.
Yeah. It's just
Come on, especially an IP like that. Come and work on the new Mass Effect. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of new IP, this is actually not. It's another terrible segue. Sony is. Speaking of IP going on a new format, Sony is dropping the PSN account requirement on PC, but now you'll unlock in-game in-game content if you connect your account up to the PC. Essentially,
Right.
Sony's had this back and forth with PlayStation fans with the PlayStation Network sign in on their PC games. People have been going mental saying, why should I have to sign in with a PSN account to play games on Steam? And this kind of kicked off originally with Helldivers 2 because it launched without a PSN requirement, although Sony had said it was going to come later. Then the game got unexpectedly massively popular, and then when Sony tried to add the account the requirement, everyone was like, wait a minute, this is bullshit, you've hoodwinked us. And then they kind of went, okay, well, you don't have to do it this time, but going forward you will. So it's been back and forth. Some games have needed it, some games haven't, and they've now come up with this compromise where they're now saying that going forward their first party games on PC won't need a PlayStation Network sign in, but if you do it you'll get some extra shit. So when Spider-Man 2 comes out, Spider-Man 2 is now out yesterday, you'll get the Spider-Man 2099 black suit and a Miles Morales suit early.
It's just that extra step to sort of log in. All of the fire hydrants in the city will be unidentifiable.
Right. I mean, they're retroactively doing. I mean, this is the way to do it, isn't it? Not to enforce the requirement. I can understand the region thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people in different regions who can't get PSN, so it's annoying.
Yeah,
but it does seem a little bit excessive to me. The backlash that you've got to log into an account.
Yeah, it drives me mad. Every game that you sort of launch from Steam, because I've been playing a lot of not Indiana Jones, but because of the new DLSS 4 stuff on my graphics card, I wanted to try it out with Cyberpunk, and playing anything on remote play on your Steam Deck or on your television through your PC, through your Wi-Fi or whatever, and you log on and then you have to, for some reason, the new kind of the extra sort of layer of having to sign into somewhere else, into Cyberpunk's little ecosystem, and then coming back into the game just really messes with the Steam Deck, really messes with the television stuff. It's just absolute. What is this data that these people need? Steam One, leave it, just leave it. Just let the people who paid the money just enjoy your bloody game instead of dealing with 3 or 4 little boxes and end user license agreements and from 3 different companies. It's just absolutely.
I mean, it is a necessary evil now. Every major kind of game now has a, most of them have this need to sign into an account now. You can't play a 2K game without signing into a 2K account. When Doom, when they re-released the Doom games, the old Doom games, you had to sign into Bethesda's kind of thing. It's just the way of the world now, and it's frustrating. What I think is quite funny is that Sony's kind of showing their arse with this by they were making excuses during the Helldiver situation as to why people had to sign up for a PSN account, because they were saying the quote back then was, account linking plays a critical role in protecting our players and upholding the values of safety and security provided on PlayStation and PlayStation Studios games. And now they're like, don't worry, you don't need it. It's it used to be like this is imperative for your security. No, I just go wild. We'll give you Miles Morales' outfit if you do it. So yeah, it's a weird one. I agree. I think the backlash is a bit ridiculous when you consider that you kind of have to sign in for these all the time. Maybe I'm just too lax with it, and I should be angrier about my data being thrown around willy-nilly. But I suppose that's just the life we live these days, isn't it?
I think because I don't play enough games emotionally. I need to play more games and find the time for that. It particularly annoys me. But I guess if you're seeing it every day in every experience, you kind of well, you know how kind of wide scale the problem is. But if I've only got 2 games on the go, Cyberpunk and Indiana Jones, it's I really notice it when it's there. Yeah. It's go away.
I wish some developers would streamline it better. It seems like you say, when you're jumping from one to the other, there's that handshake isn't really working as well as it probably could be. and it's frustrating. But yeah, oh well. Microsoft was the #1 games publisher in the world last month. I'm sure you all got emergency alerts on your phone, like making you aware of this. That apparently $465 million was spent on Microsoft games over December, making it the world's biggest publisher across PC, PlayStation, and Xbox, according to data firm Ampere. They're basically citing Indiana Jones, but mostly, obviously, Call of Duty as the main reason that Microsoft was the biggest publisher. Is this just further proof that Microsoft is doing the right thing in terms of making money, if not in terms of the whole console war that everyone seems adamant is still a thing?
Well, they're doing the right thing in buying Activision. Christmas time is usually when Activision is the biggest publisher, right?
Yeah, no, they're not because it's Microsoft.
That's me being petty, but of course, I mean they this gets overlooked. Doesn't it say that almost 65% of that revenue, that spend, was on PlayStation as well? Like, I mean, this has been, even before Activision, Microsoft are one of the biggest publishers on Nintendo, one of the biggest publishers on PlayStation, because of stuff like Minecraft.
Yeah.
So they've always been big in their own right. The console thing almost like kind of overshadowed that.
Yeah.
So,
it's like I said that I was saying this on our Discord last night. It's like, people who are suddenly surprised that Microsoft is releasing its games on PlayStation consoles haven't been following Microsoft's history, because this has been going on for decades. Like even in a games sense, like Microsoft were like when Diddy Kong Racing was put back on the DS, even though Microsoft owned Rare, that was a kind of Viva Pinata on DS and stuff like that. But you go all the way back to like Microsoft Office getting put on Mac in like the late 90s. It's like Microsoft could have easily continued to say, look, if you want the best Office thing, then you need Windows, a Windows PC. But instead they happily put Office on Mac because they would make more money off it. So this isn't a brand new, wild new strategy for Microsoft to suddenly say, why don't we put our stuff on competitors' platforms? Like they're a software company first and foremost. The hardware is a kind of ends to justify the means of them making the games. And if they can put those games on other hardware, and take the pressure off their kind of hardware side of the business, then they'll do it. So it seems kind of straightforward to me. It's just trying to get out of that mindset of Xbox plays Xbox games, PlayStation plays PlayStation games, Switch plays Switch games. This is going to have to, maybe not so much for Nintendo because they do what they like, but certainly for Xbox and PlayStation, they're kind of eating each other, and they have to greet each other instead of eat each other.
When did has Indiana Jones and the Great Circle sold as well as we all hoped it would? Because I know we all enjoyed it and stuff, but has it absolutely pulled up trees? Because obviously we're still waiting for the PlayStation version. But
it's hard to tell at this stage, isn't it? Because obviously there was so many copies on Game Pass. We really need to wait for the PS4 release to see the full kind of data on that one. Because I would imagine not a lot of people bought it on Xbox. Maybe on Steam it would have got good sales, but you've got to imagine most people on Xbox these days have Game Pass. Although I suppose it's Game Pass Ultimate rather than standard Game Pass, so I don't know.
I mean, this is about spend, right?
Yeah. So in terms of
those, you probably think the idea being that they probably, if more people played it on Game Pass, you only need a smaller percentage of them to like buy some skins and stuff.
Yeah. So physical sales may not look necessarily great for it, but that's because the majority are playing it on Game Pass, which obviously they're paying for, so that's still money made. The number of people who maybe subscribe to Game Pass mainly to play Indiana Jones, it's just a figure that can't be easily quantified. So it's just basically, as long as numbers go up, they remain happy, like whatever the reason is, I would imagine. But as for PlayStation's shuffling the top tier. PlayStation has named a new sole president and CEO. Hideaki Nishino is now the new president and CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment. For the past 8 months, they had this kind of co-CEO thing where Nishino was in charge of the kind of platform group, and Herman Hulst was in charge of the studios group, the kind of game development. So now they said, Herman, mate, you stay in charge of the studios. and Nishino, you can now kind of oversee the entire thing. And so now Hulse reports to him. It's just it's hard to tell how that's going to actually affect us, but you imagine long term, Nishino probably has his ideas.
They probably were already doing that. I think. I mean, they had this weird when Jim Ryan left, they had this weird joint CEO set up, right, where it was already like this. Yeah. Like Nishino was running business and platform stuff, and
he was the Portal guy, wasn't he? He was the big PlayStation Portal man.
Oh, he's a platform guy, yeah. And Hulse was kind of doing more of the content studio's first party side anyway. So it just seems that they've sort of like formalized that and said, well, I mean, like there's, how many businesses out there, let alone like, $1 billion businesses have got two CEOs. It's not, is that not usually a great idea, right?
Yeah.
To have no one with sole responsibility for the decisions. That's just the way I see it. It doesn't seem like really much of a change at all.
It feels like a sensible reshuffling to be able to point and say that's the guy we report to, instead of staff going, do we go to him or do we go to him? Like to say he's the big guy, you go to him, and obviously the way people are going to spin it, because the internet's internet, people spin it as Herman Hulse wasn't chosen, he was inferior, but that's not. It's just they're working on two different groups, and he's the one who's just been chosen to. They had to pick one of them, so they picked him. It just is what it is. Hulse still has the kind of extremely important role of making sure the studios are producing the games, which is something that Sony needs to kind of get a move on with, I would say, because they're cancelling more games than they're releasing at this point. But I mean,
Hulse was kind of front and center with the Concord stuff as well. He was the one having to do all of the. Oh, sorry about all of this.
Yeah. I'm conscious we haven't taken a break yet. we're probably coming up to the end in about 10-15 minutes. So we'll take a break now. Here's some lovely messages from the lovely sponsors, and we'll be back very soon. And we are back, gentlemen. It's time to say, will soon be time to say a very warm sum to The Sims, because EA has been teasing all week that they're bringing back The Sims 1 and 2. And I cannot tell you how many people replied to me when I reported on this early in the week. The amount of people who have such love for the original Sims and The Sims 2 are delighted at the news that EA is set to re-release them, because it's impossible to play The Sims 1 unless you have the disc, because it was never digitally released, because it was like 25 years ago. So they've been teasing all week, but maybe by the time you hear this podcast, it's finally been announced, because they were meant to announce it between the 27th and the 31st, and it's now the 31st, and they haven't done it yet at the time of us recording this. So it's just a matter of time before they finally say, here you go. And The Sims with all DLC reportedly coming this week. Do either of you have fond memories of The Sims?
No.
Good. Thanks.
Well, it was kind of. I remember when The Sims arrived, it was kind of like, it's little computer people on the Amstrad. It's just that. It's just that, but better, isn't it? And it's an astonishing bit of work, and the way that it kind of captured everyone's imagination. There was a DLC a couple of years ago that I thought was lovely. They did like a load of matzo ball soup, like a Jewish food. In addition, sort of thing, so you can cook this delicious Jewish food. And I remember looking at the food in The Sims, going, "This is so delicious. Where do I get this?" Like lusting after some beautiful Jewish soup in a Sims video game is such a weird thing to do. And I never got me soup. I never got me soup. So yeah, I don't know where I would go for the soup. I want the soup, Chris.
Well, I'll write a Stanley.
My memory is just I want that lovely soup.
I'll write a Stanley worded letter to EA and ask where the soup is.
Yeah, where's the soup? Where do I find the soup in real life?
The old ones were the ones that I kind of was obsessed with. When it got to like 3 and 4, they got too complicated for my liking. Like 1 and 2 were basic enough that I could kind of get into them and then kind of get properly into them and then move on. So like I recreated the Friends apartment in The Sims.
Oh, nice.
And put all the friends in it and stuff like that. I was properly into it for ages, but it was back in the days when Friends was a going concern, and not slammed for its making light of the lesbian community, which apparently is what people say about it now.
Is that a new one, right? Okay.
The good old days. Briefly, Andy, you were playing Dune Awakening, and now you can speak about it. How is it good?
Yes.
Good. Thanks.
I don't play a lot of survival games, so again, it's so difficult. Like we said this recently, like you're in a preview event setting, and all games are pretty good these days. So it is difficult to tell whether this is going to last 5 minutes or be a mega hit. You would have said the same if you played Helldivers in a preview event, right? Or Power World.
Yeah.
It's really good. Like I'm a big fan of the books. I'm a big fan of the movies. So my concern going in is it's going to be one of those weird, like licensed but not licensed games, where it's like, it's like I'm not Timothy Chalamet, and the music's all different. But actually they're working with Legendary Entertainment, and a lot of stuff in the game has gone through Villeneuve's team and through Herbert's team for his son. And it feels like surprisingly authentic. Like the music is not done by Hans Zimmer, but it feels like it's of the same, cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
Visually, it has the same design language. Like the designs have been approved by them. And it's just like the Dune universe lends itself to a survival game, like really super, super well, right? Like you're on a big desert planet with, and you haven't got a steel suit, and you need to like extract water, and you got a water meter at all times, and how much water you got left. You either get it from like plants and stuff like that, or you extract it from the blood of like other players. You can kill them and they like get like blood packs off of them. So you're constantly like out for water as a resource. Then obviously spice, increases your skills and stuff. And there's like a shade meter, like you'll lose more water if you're in the sun, like at different times of day and things like that. And then obviously it's got like kind of crafting and base building and big worms if you run across the sand too loudly. And it's it's a really cool game. It'd be interested to see how that goes down, because it's on console as well as PC. And it's been in beta for over a year, I think. So they're listening to what their players say.
I'm exhausted just hearing about it. That's like it sounds like the sort of game that people will get massively into, but I just couldn't.
Yeah, there's too much going on. There's a preview on the site. There's a preview on the site, and there's a good 30 minutes worth of footage on a YouTube channel.
Yeah,
if you want to see it in action.
They we're like Crypto Group who bought that Dune book that mistakenly thought where they thought that they now had the license to make Dune like films and stuff. Do you remember? A couple of years ago, those absolute dickheads spent $3 million on the original kind of adaptation of the novel, failed adaptation for the novel, and they thought, this gives us the copyright to make art with it. No, it doesn't. You just bought a really expensive book, you dickhead.
Fannies. There are people on the Discord asking if we're going to address this other website who've kind of parted ways with their founder. Are we going to briefly touch on this? Or
I'll touch on it. I'm an outsider.
Okay, Pete, go wild.
Look, we've all worked for problematic men in our time.
I currently am.
Exactly. It sounds like it's a situation that. Do you want to sort of explain the story, Chris? In a polite fashion,
in a careful manner, because it's a delicate situation. So, the website God is a Geek, their founder was recently had his priest license revoked after he imitated a salute that Elon Musk did recently. That many thought looked.
What does these church describe it as?
The church described it as a Nazi salute. Those are the words.
Well, they described it as what many people, some people have interpreted as a Nazi salute.
We are suggesting
which is the correct. Don't get sued.
Yeah, we are suggesting that the church suggested. We're suggesting that the church suggested that someone else suggested that it might have been a Nazi salute, and so
interpreted as
a
Nazi salute.
He doesn't seem like he's doing that well to be that worried about litigious things. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
he's floating around. I just sort of worry
lots of the loudest, most aggressive commentators are very litigious.
Yeah. Okay. Fair.
So essentially, the Andy asked the team of the website earlier yesterday what they had to say about it, and at the time they essentially said, "We don't support it. That's all we're saying." They wouldn't confirm whether he still owned the site or not.
Well, they didn't say they don't support it at all. they said he has no involvement in the website day to day, and we're not commenting further. So they didn't.
That's true. That's true.
Kind of,
corrected.
They didn't.
They said he wasn't
distance
involved in
themselves
the
from his views at any point. In fact, they were creating the impression that he wasn't involved.
Yeah.
In their website, there seemed to have been a lot of work put into hiding his own continued ownership of the site that he founded. Mm-hmm. Whether it's from their side or whether it's from his side, it was done.
Yeah.
I think in 2022, the domain owner was moved to America so that they could hide it, so they could put it as a confidential individual. I don't know if that's an EU law thing that you can't do that, but it was seemingly moved to the US. Previously, it was owned by him, a company or one of his companies. Yeah. It clearly says on their website that it's owned by a company that was his, that was dissolved some years ago.
Yeah.
So again, not clear. So it was never clear. And this is, I mean, I've seen a lot of the US press. I've been very, very surprised by this because God as a Geek is a smaller site, but it's I mean, we're probably more aware of it is because they are in the fold, so to speak. They get access, they get review code from most companies. They are in advertising. Their quotes are regularly in advertising for Nintendo games, for PlayStation games, for Xbox games. So that's really probably why they're more known here. And it has been a talking point in the UK press for a long time. Mm-hmm. Is this guy still involved? Because obviously he's become, his public statements and public acts have become more and more cruel, I would say, and extreme.
Yeah.
He every view that comes from the right wing commentator space that kind of ticks people off. He has expressed those views. He's like against kind of gay marriage and things like that, and he's talked out against Black Lives Matter and everything under the sun over the years. It's not a new thing. He's been doing podcasts, and he's on GB News, and he ran for the Conservative Party, and then he ran for the Brexit Party, and then he's now a spokesperson for UKIP. So all the very, very far right parties in the UK. So that has been a talking point for years. Does he still own this website? Yeah. And anytime it was put to their staff, I know people who were blocked on social media by them. I know people who were, called bullies for pushing this agenda. Mm-hmm. And obviously, on the morning of this happening, I reached out myself and I was told Calvin Robinson has no involvement with this site on a day-to-day basis whatsoever. Yeah. The editorial team will make no further comment. So that is probably a true statement, but it doesn't. That's not what we're interested in, because even if he's not. I mean, you're seeing it right now. I mean, this is what a lot of people in the UK space have been saying for years. He's literally put the site up for sale this morning on his Twitter account. He's called games journalists woke, predictably, and criticised his own staff, and he's put the site up for sale. And if he can easily get, even for a small site, a couple of $100,000 for that site. And it will be because of, those editorial team have built that value for him. Mm-hmm. And that is part of the issue. And I think there's a lot, I've got, a fair play and a lot of respect for them. Maybe not a lot of respect, but I respect them for making the right decision finally and walking away. It's a difficult time especially in the games media. You can't just quit your job and, there's no guarantee you're going to get another one.
Yeah.
However, my understanding is that the vast majority of their staff were working for free. It's an enthusiast site. Yeah. Or certainly not a full-time wage, which changes that dynamic drastically.
Yeah.
I think it's only one or like the boss or the boss two bosses that were on a wage.
Yeah.
And really, they're the guys who make the decisions, right? I mean, the rest of the team are going along with that. But so it leaves a lot of questions, which, not least, why is it taken so long for them to act? This is not a new thing. this is the thing that's blown up in the US because he did it in the US and it's made the US news, and obviously the US press now know who they are. But he's been doing this stuff in Britain for a long time. It's acting, doing things and saying things on and to a mass market audience on national television and at political rallies that would make most people, I would hope, question or walk, or certainly I would be walking away if that happened. And the other question for me is, what does this mean for their readership and for the games industry? They said that basically it's it was difficult for them to walk because they wanted to protect their work, their access, and their relationships, which was a quote, which is kind of difficult for me to swallow, to be honest. Did Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox, Bethesda, any publisher that they've worked with had review code, invited them to their events? Did they know about the ownership of the site? Did they make that clear? What about their readers? If you're a reader of God is a Geek, are you happy that because you've been supported, this guy is now going to sell this website for potentially hundreds of thousands of pounds, and you've indirectly, unknowingly contributed to that? So I think it's like every situation. It's not black and white. It's a big shade of grey.
Yeah, it's fun times. I don't disagree with any of that. That's that's spot on, I reckon. I'm conscious that we're running over, so we'll try and draw a line on this. Apologies to those who sent in Discord comments. We didn't get to them all. I'll roll them over to next week, so I'll make sure Jordan has them for next week's, and we'll kind of do a kind of extra comment section next week. Very quickly, Pete, who's winning the Royal Rumble?
Oh, who is it? It'll be John Cena, won't it?
I hope it isn't. It's got to be Punk.
It'll be John Cena.
Can you explain to me what's the difference between WrestleMania and Royal Rumble?
Royal Rumble is they put 30 people in the ring, and only one person wins at the end, and the person who wins gets
like
the title.
A battle royale.
Exactly, and the one person who wins gets a title fight at WrestleMania. So it's basically.
So they have like I think there's a new. Is there a 2K WWE game coming out on mobile? CM Punk was doing a very low energy promo.
So you can see that on VGC.
Reading auto cue like a real legend.
You can see that on VGC. I posted that yesterday. CM Punk going, "Hey guys, WWE's coming on mobile," and I just could not give a shit. So yeah, look out for that in the fall. But
it's a Netflix mobile game, isn't it?
Netflix
exclusive. Whenever you sort of go on Netflix and it says we got games, I go, no, you haven't. Stop being silly. It's just,
they've got a decent selection. They're just
they
not great at promoting it. Anyway, we'll talk about Netflix another time. But we have to roll because Andy has another secret visit, thankfully involving video games and not lawyers. Send us your questions, comments and concerns to podcast@videogameschronicle.com. Visit our Patreon at patreon.com/videogameschronicle for more silliness. Thank you as ever to the legendary Grant Kirkhope for the VGC podcast team. Say goodbye, Pete.
Goodbye.
Say goodbye, Andy.
Goodbye.
And it's a goodbye from me, and we will see you next week.